No music. Fast opening tonight. Trying to beat the weather a little bit. It's been real rainy in the Chattanooga area, Phil. Weather holding together down in Valley Head right now, and how are you tonight?
Well, I think it's pretty much gone. I reckon last time heard the weather, they said the rain's pretty much out of here. It looks like it's trying to clear up a little bit. So it's a little better now, but it was a little testy earlier today.
It definitely was. We've got I've already told you and Coach, it's a privilege to have the two most famous people in Valley Head on the line at one time. But then Coach made the point they ain't but about 800 people in Valley Head, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So,
well, I think you may be scraping the bottom of the barrel.
I tell you what, why don't you go ahead and introduce Coach? Let's bring him on in.
Well, Coach Charles Robert Hammom, of course, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you on. I know it's a busy time of year, but we wanted to try to get you on before it got real busy, because this week it really starts for real.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I appreciate that, Phil, and I appreciate y'all having us on.
Well, first thing I want to ask you, Coach, is, you've been in this for a long time. What got you started in coaching? What made you want to be a football coach?
It's funny you say that, and when you kind of mention the most famous, I think there's a lot of famous folks from Valley Head, and in my mind and in my book, it's just all good people, and we're kind of all the same. And going back to what got me into this was, one of your mentors, one of my mentors. You kind of, you take a little bit from every coach that you're around, or at least I tried to, and I think a lot of coaches do too. And there was a point in time in my life when I was in the 7th grade. Coach Jim Kirby had kind of took me under his wing, and I was kind of like another son to him. I think he was like another dad to me, and we spent a lot of time together, and even after high school and ball, worked together, and just think the world of him. But one time in the 7th grade, he asked me. He always called me Charlie. He said, "Charlie," he said, "you want to coach, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'm going to give you a piece of advice." He said, "There's a lot of ball coaches in this world that's really, really good that never get paid for it." He said, "For you to be able to get paid for it, you're going to have to go to school." And from that point forward, I knew what I wanted to do. My father was a brick mason. My grandfather was a brick mason. My uncle was a brick mason. So, back then we got 3 months during the summer. And at 3:30 in the morning, I rode in the back of a pickup truck all the way to Dalton, Georgia from Valley Head and carried brick all day. So I knew I didn't want to do that. So, it just, it's something I've always had a passion for. I like people. I love kids. And it's just really worked out for me. I've kind of been 2 or 3 stops there, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, and made great relationships everywhere I've been. And that's kind of what it's about. I don't harp on a whole lot of wins and losses. I really enjoy taking a program that may have struggled the year before or has recently, and putting together a plan. And, sometimes when you kind of get there with a plan, it becomes boring. The kids, it kind of runs itself. So, that's what got me into it was him, letting me know that if I was going to get paid for it one day, that I needed to go to school. So that's kind of where it all started. And to be honest with you, Phil, when my senior year in high school, of course, I'll go back to my 10th grade year. I'll never forget Coach Kirby and Rhonda, his wife, took me to a camp at UTC for 2 days and dropped me off, and they went and shopped, but it was just me and them, and he didn't have to do that. And then my senior year, Coach Jim Ellis was at Dade County, and of course John was up there, and Jerry Brown, and I was just a senior in high school, getting ready to walk on at Jacksonville State. Coach Kirby asked me, he said that Coach Ellis, Jim Ellis, wanted him to come up and put the wishbone in, wanted to know if I wanted to help. And I told him I sure did. So I rode with him for 2 weeks during the spring up there, and he'd give me my first ever whistle. And I'll never forget being at practice at Dade County High School. We were doing a little live drill, 2-on-2 or something. And he grabbed me and he said, "Okay, it's your turn." He said, "Get as close as you can and start coaching." And that was the end of it.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's an amazing story. But that leads me into my next question. And of course, I know Jim Ellis had to be one of the coaches you looked up to. He's no longer with us, but I met him, and he was a super good guy. I met him back. I went and saw Dade County practice when they had camp up here in Mentone. I went and visited John and got to meet him that day. And I was very impressed by him. But who are some of the other coaches that inspired you that you've worked for?
Well, there come a point in time, kind of a rough point in time, that I realized I was never going to be big enough, fast enough, or really have the energy anymore to play college football at the Jacksonville State level. And ended up going over. Coach Burgess, of course, there, still take some stuff from him. I went over and helped Bill Jones with basketball. Coach Burgess sent me over to Coach Jones, and I told him, I said, Coach, I've never played no basketball. And he laughed at me. He said, it's not to play basketball, you dummy. He said, he's got you a job. So I've never been on scholarship. So I was on scholarship with Coach Jones for 2 years, helping with the basketball team. So I took a lot from Coach Jones and Coach Mabry, Charles Burkett. And then during that time, I knew that Coach Coach Hobbizel had been at Valleyhead and coached my uncle, and he was at Piedmont. So I showed up at Piedmont one day. I thought, man, I've got to get back in football, the very next season. And he gave me one hat for 3 years of helping at Piedmont, and I learned a ton there. So I helped him for 3 years on the junior high level, and I would advise anybody that want to go into coaching, coach junior high football for 2 or 3 years, because not just football, you're going to learn how to handle kid situations, parent situations, rainy day situations. You learn everything about the world of coaching other than football from coaching junior high football. So I took a lot from him. Mark Mariakis at Ridgeland, John Starr at Chattooga, Jeff Poston at Dade County, Paul Ellis at Fort Payne. I've really had some really, really good mentors through the times that's helped me along.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear, Coach. Well, let's get started more toward our neck of the woods. Of course, you're the head coach at Valleyhead football at Valleyhead High School. What does that mean to you to get to come home and coach where you play? We have a lot of coaches in the area that we're in that coach at their alma mater. What does that mean?
Oh, we really do. It's the greatest thing on earth. 20 years ago, it was a dream come true. And just some things, it just went awry. And I moved on, and really, I moved from Dade County to Chattooga to Ridgeland, back to Fort Payne, back to Chattooga, just trying to find Valleyhead again. And really, I applied for it. I think every time it come open, except for once, and just it wasn't in the cards. And this time it was in the cards for me to get a chance to come back. And once I got it, I thought, there was no question. To me, and everybody has their own preference. Some people hunt with a blue dog, some people hunt with a Walker dog. And for me, in the world of football, I don't know of a greater place in the world than Valleyhead. Valleyhead is the only place that I know where the entire fan base, of course, they all love the game and Valleyhead football, but the entire fan base has a complete understanding that you're going to cycle. And all schools cycle. But Valleyhead's one of the only places I've ever been to where everybody understands you're going to cycle. It's okay. You don't want to go 3-7, 2-8. You want to build a program where you at least establish 5-5, 6-4. But even at Valleyhead, people understand that. I've been places before where you could go 1-9 and the talent pool just wasn't there. Everybody else was pretty loaded. The kids played as hard as they could. Things just didn't go your way. And, there's a lot of folks in town and parents think, well, we're supposed to win every year. We're supposed to win this year because my son's on the team. People in Valleyhead have an understanding of high school football probably better than anywhere I've ever been. It's still one of the only places you can go to the cafe, you can stop at the store. Everywhere I go, I get hit. How we going to be this year? How we going to be? Good luck. And really and truly, if we have a bad year, I still think those same people would say, hey, good job. Just keep pecking on. We got another one coming next year. So that's what makes it special.
Yeah, I think, I kind of sort of people, I'll talk to people, it's like when Jim Kirby was there. If you had a bad season, you still won 4 games. You found a way, but you wasn't going to win 10 every year. It's not going to happen. No. There's a lot bigger schools around us.
That's right. And we select from a very small pool in our region. You can go back 20 years ago or or 50 when you just kidding, Phil. Yeah, you can go back quite a ways. And our close. Yes, our competition pool for us has always been pretty good. You've always had the Cedar Bluffs in there. You're always going to have some schools, and now the private schools have come in. I mean, you're going to have schools that's got 3A, 4A, athletic kids. They're going to have some kids that could play and start at running back for some 3A and 4A teams. So, our competition is still pretty tough. So we pull from the kids that we've got. And some years we'll have, some years we have 18. Everybody plays both ways. And right now we're fortunate. I think I counted the other day, we had 29 kids on roster in grades 10th, 11th, 12th. I don't know that that's ever happened before. If it has, I'd have to go back and see it.
Yeah, you probably are correct. And another thing, people would talk about, a lot of schools in areas where they can get kids to move around. They'll move in from
you got some
a directional area. Yeah. From around them. They've got a pool around them. But the thing is, Valley Head and Fort Payne are kind of the same. You have nothing to the north and you have nothing to the east. So if anybody comes here, they have to come from the south or the west. A lot of schools are surrounded by people, and they jump to whoever's winning. It pretty much has to stick with what the kids are in their neighborhood.
Yeah, you're going, and I've always said it, once you get a kid there, our problem at Valley Head over the years has been losing our Valley Head kids, and we would really like to try to fix that of keeping our elementary Valley Head kids there and the parents involved in the quarterback club and the athletic club and basketball and baseball, and just making sure they stay there. We've lost a lot of kids over the years to many different directions.
Yeah, I think some have been lost because we've had issues with baseball field, because we've lost kids because of baseball.
Yeah.
Of course, right now, hopefully, we're about to have a new baseball field here, and I think that will help all sports.
It'll help everything. It sure will.
Yeah. Well, Coach, let's get into, coming up. Of course, you've got 2 new staff members. Talk just briefly on those 2 and what they mean to your staff right now.
Well, Coach Jonathan McGill come to us from Sandrock, and Coach Paul Benefield had called me about Coach McGill. I think he played for Coach Benefield in 2003. He was at Sandrock. We had a math opening, and he coached football and was going to help us with track, or the head coach of track. And he's been a huge asset to us and a plus. And anytime you can get any coach in mathematics, it's a plus before you ever even start. And then we've got Coach J. Tyler Ellis, which is Coach Paul Ellis' son. And, of course, I put J. Tyler on his first ever deer kill, and he's fished my pond since he was just a kid. And me and his dad's always been close, so he's been a huge asset. Coach McGill is going to coach the defensive line, and J. Tyler's going to coach. Coach Ellis is going to coach the running backs, quarterbacks.
Well, that sounds good. And that's good to have two paid coaches on your staff. That really has to help. Of course, you've got a lot of volunteer assistants, and I know you can't say enough about those guys. Okay, let's talk a little bit about last season. Great year, 10-2, got to the second round of the playoffs. Talk a little bit about this team, and talk a little bit about kind of the disappointment at the end of the year.
Well, we went out early, and I'll live the rest of my life knowing that we dropped the ball and went out early. Had a tremendous year. Had some great leadership, and that is key to any good football team. And, started the year off pretty rocky. We were behind at halftime in the first 4 football games and came back to win. And one of them was an overtime game against Section. One of them was down 14 against Coosa. It come down to that 20-some-odd yard field goal there to end. And we ended up, luckily squeaking that one out. So we wasn't giving anything. I think there's a lot of people on the edge of their seat for the first 4 or 5 games. And, we rolled all the way around there and stayed healthy and got to game 10. And Collinsville had a very good football team. Coach Willingham does a great job. Him and his staff, he always has. And, they made a lot of plays. They made a couple more plays that we didn't make. I thought we played good. I didn't think that we played bad. I think Collinsville went maybe 8. Tell me if I'm wrong, but maybe 8-2 last year in Double A.
Yeah, they did.
About right. So they were a very good football team, and I put us in man coverage there at one time to go after the quarterback, and they hit a route right before half and scored really a couple scores in a few seconds that kind of pulled away, and we had a chance at the end. But really, that loss was kind of heaven sent. Yes, you would like to be 10-0. Yes, it's been a long time since Valley has been 10-0. Long time since Valley has won 10 games, and in a season, you know that. But that loss kind of reeled that bunch back in, and we played the first round against Phillips, and we were lights out. I mean, we could do no wrong. And then we carried that into the next game against Marion, and the first half we go in 7-0 and miss another scoring opportunity. And then the second half, we get the football and go on like a 13-play drive, and we've got the ball first and goal on the 1 yard line. And Fishing go up 2 scores, and they've got their hands on their hips, and we don't get in. They spotted on the inch line, and we turned the football over to them there. And I thought we had him hit for a safety, and the ball comes back out to the inch line. And the next play, they hit us on the out route. The 6'4" kid that my corner missed and safety missed, and he took it to the house, and that was kind of the change of the game, and we couldn't reel them back in. We had everything going our way till about 3 minutes left to go in the third, with other opportunities to go up 2 and 3 scores. I felt like we had a good enough football team, to move on. But I've said this for years: you got to be there with a group of kids before you can get there. It's baby steps with them.
Yeah, well, of course, I think, sometimes you take a loss like that. This team coming back this year has to leave a little bit of a burr under their saddle. They felt like they didn't complete things. So that has to be a motivating factor. So that gets me to this. Expectations. The bar has been raised. This football team wants more.
Yes, sir. I do. We've had a really good summer. Of course, everybody in the Southeast knows we lost 2 very good backs, and Hunter Robinson and Ian Bain. And over the summer and through spring, we've had some kids kind of stepped up to fill those roles. Of course, Ian's brother Nate, and then Cotton Blevins, Brandon Vasquez. We've moved him back there, kind of the blocking back. He's been playing tackle. He moves well. Hernan Amorano, Ben Johnson, Caden Collins. Those guys are and then Kason McElrath. So we've got a number of guys to pull from to find the right mix. The other day, I take a lot of pride, and I don't mind telling you guys this, but I take a lot of pride in clocking 40s. Coach Charles Kelly, that's another one. Him and Patrick Nix that I've learned a ton from. Doug Meacham, but Coach Kelly kind of taught me and set me down on clocking 40s, and I've always laughed about kids that go to camp and we'll clock 2 40s and then take the average of it. We clock it on first movement, and Nate ran his the other day. We had 11 kids run sub 5 flat, and Nate Littlebane ran his. I hit that kid at a 4.46 and a 4.44. And Phil, that's no joke. I'm stating this out loud on for Nate. That's the first 4.4 that I have timed, I think, since Tyler Harrison.
Yeah.
Since Tyler.
Yeah.
Me and that talked about it. About you got to play that fast,
Oh yes, that's something, because we don't see that a whole lot.
No,
you got some kids that are fast, but that's the fast you kind of see on TV sometimes.
Yeah, the kid was. It was unbelievable. The second time he ran it, I had the coaches listen to my stopwatch ding, and I said, "Don't you watch his first movement, just see if I miss." And as soon as he flinched, I hit him, and everybody said, "Oh, you're dead on," and it was. He was really. We talked about it today about some people run a clock at 4.7, but they play at 4.4. And some people run a 4.4 and play at 4.7. I said, you just got to play at 4.4. Now that you can run like this. And Nate, I got to give him a little bit of shout out. Last year he was 134 and he squatted 330. Year to date, he's 146 and he squats 430. So, you take a 146, it squats 430. We're kind of expecting some big things out of him, especially after clocking him. He's got a lot to live up to now.
Yeah, definitely. So you let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, you've got a lot of veterans coming back too, and I wanted to ask you about this because the key to this football team is up front on both sides of the ball, and naturally, if you're going to go deeper in the playoffs, y'all got to get better defensively. I know you gave up over 20 points a game last year, but that's key for this football team. But you've got some good veterans coming back. Talk about some of those guys.
Well, Ethan Webb and Noah Hogan both kind of anchor. They both going to play tight end and defensive end. Colin Tuberville's going to play a 3 technique and offensive tackle. Carson Frost is going to measure in at about 6'8", 260, and Carson has really worked his tail off. I mean, Carson looks really good right now. Brant Smith and Braden Busby play the outside backers. They started for 3 years. Ben Johnson plays the mic. Aiden Logan will play center for us. He's going to be another 2-year starter. Rydell Segura, he started 2.5 years for us, I guess, now. So this will be his 3.5 year start. Then this year, a lot of experience of some pretty good sized young men that have really worked hard in the weight room. And then, in the secondary, we've kind of put some things together in bits and pieces. And, this year with Casey McElrath and Lennon Pike and Hernan Morano and Hawkins, Lane Hawkins, we could be probably as solid back there. I don't know. It could take me 10 more years of coaching over there to be that solid back there. We just got to stay healthy.
Yeah, that's of course that's in all small schools when it comes to football. Randy, I'm gonna before I go any further, is there anything you want to ask?
Yeah, Coach. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I left out. Chance Pearson will play guard. Chance will be. He started some last year too. When I got to Carson, I want to make sure that I got them all hit there.
Okay. Randy, is there anything you want to ask before I go any further?
Yeah, Coach. I just want to get a quick question in about last year, and talk about you what having success. You talk about, and even the young kids seeing the older kids succeed, and you talk about they want more, they need more expectations. And I've been around a lot of coaches. How do you handle that word expectations for yourself as a coach?
Well, right now, I've probably got more butterflies about the season than anybody. We've got Pee-wee, the Pee-wee League Jamboree game Saturday, Meet the Tigers Friday night, so everything's kind of kicking off here. I do not handle it very well. I don't. My mind just runs. But with the kids and our program and the team, every year's a new year. I stress that. And every year I want them to basically give 100% effort, be the best they can be. They know that the football gods are out there and the ball has to bounce a certain way sometimes. But we try to set expectations where they're obtainable. And I've always tried to set obtainable goals, and then we'll make other goals. So to answer your question, the goals and the expectations going into this year is to have a winning season and make the playoffs. And if we can have a winning season and make the playoffs, regardless of what happens or how it all goes down, it's a successful year. Now, sure, we would like to win all 10. I'm sure we would like to make it to the semis and have a chance to play for it. We would love for everything to go great, but we want to set, expectations that we know that are truly obtainable. And then once we get that winning season, then we'll move on and set another one. It'll be the third round. We want to go one more round what we did last year, but we can't really set that one until we make sure that we're in the playoffs. So we really don't look ahead much.
I like that, Coach. Go ahead, Phil.
Go ahead, Randy.
No, I had nothing else. I just love that answer, and I want to tell, because some coaches are almost superstitious about that word, and I totally respect a coach that'll say, we have expectations, we have goals, and you got to work towards that. And I love the fact you talk about achieve goal 1, then goal 2, then goal 3. That's realistic.
Yes, sir. We try to keep everything really common sense and realistic, and spend a lot. We spend a lot of time together, and I'll probably see these kids for the next 3 months, as much as anybody sees them. And we handle all of our problems together. Over the years, I've got where I don't do a lot of hollering. I've got some kids that played for me at Valleyhead 20 years ago. They want to know where their old coach is at. And I try to explain to them all the time that I've got smarter. And I really have. I feel like I have. We were really good 20 years ago if I hadn't beat them to death and hollered at them every day, So I do a lot more whispering now and put my arm around them than I used to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think as you learn, I think you become more of a teacher. And,
you do.
And I think that really helps the kids when you encourage them. And that's what teaching's about.
Well, you're great. I've always been told, and I know this to be a fact, your best teachers in the high school classrooms would make your best coaches, whether they know anything about the game or not. They understand how to teach.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. Well, Coach, I want to ask, of course, you've got a great supporting cast. Your wife, AJ, I saw her at the spring game, and she was looking forward to football. She goes, I'm ready for some football. I missed it. You've got a great supporting cast, but what keeps you coming back year after year?
Lord, Phil, I think I forgot how to do anything else. I'd go broke, I guess. I don't know. Just being with the kids, that's what takes me over. We're doing a thing right now where we got a little bit of work release for our seniors where they're not at school just the entire day. And to work around that, right here during football season, the old fat guys got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to have the weight room open for them at 6:30 where they can get their lifts in and not take up a class period during the day. So, as much as you hate to go into work an hour and a half early, you're eager to get up and get in the car to get over there because you get to see the guys, and that's what's best for them. So I guess what keeps me in it more so than anything is just my relationship with the kids. And every year I continue to build more relationships. There's not a week goes by that I don't get a phone call from Dade County. There's not a week goes by that I do not get a phone call from Chattooga. And it's always somebody different. I still get a lot of phone calls from the kids that played the year I was with Coach Ellis at Fort Payne. It's just the relationships you make with them, And that's one day we're all going to be gone from here. And if you laid up in the hospital bed or you do leave this world, I'd like to know that I made, that I made a little bit of impression and a relationship with as many people as I could.
Yeah, because you always want to leave a legacy. That's the goal of anybody, especially in your position. Well, Coach, this is something I always ask coaches because I know it's a big thrill. It's one of the biggest thrills you have. It's not winning and losing. It ain't always about winning and losing, but one of the biggest thrills is it a great feeling when you see when a kid gets it, when that light comes on. Coaches see that. How does that make you feel as a coach?
It's one of the greatest feelings in the world. Sometimes it takes 2 years for that light to hit. I'm still waiting on a handful of them for the light to hit. But man, when it does, that brings about a little bit of extra yelling. It really does. And some get it early. Some's got it when they get there, and some's got it and just don't know, the exacts. And man, once they learn the exacts, and they start to put their hat and hands in the right place, and they start to take the right step, and they start to make the right reads defensively, it's real rewarding.
Yeah, because then they pretty much, you become a team-led football team rather than a coach-led football team, and that's the goal.
Sure, and to be honest, Phil, I think we're real close to that right now. We're kind of behind the 8 ball, or at least I feel pressed behind the 8 ball. We played a spring game, so we couldn't officially start practice to August 7th, which give us 3 weeks to have a football team ready for North Sand Mountain coming home, which is, it's fine. That's plenty. But then we had the storms yesterday that knocked out the power. Nobody had power. Then we had, a late morning. We didn't come into school till late. Then I get the call that we got storms coming in, and we've got to go home, that we can't practice. So I'm sitting at home beating my head against the wall thinking, man, I've lost another day. But going back to last week, on Wednesday, 100% of all of our special teams was in. all of our specialty circuit, all of our special teams, everybody knowing who's on what, all of our backups are in. We run the same offense, been running for 3 years. There's not a question mark over there, and we're still doing the same thing defensively. So, like right now today, even though we have not practiced, you could come to the field, and if I had the guys there, I could blow a whistle and line up every special team group. I could blow a whistle and go through our entire defensive package with all the stunts, and I could blow a whistle and probably get in 4 or 5 formations, run 10, 12 running plays, and 8 or 10 pass plays, including our spread package. So, now the problem's going to be we ran pretty good. We were up to 3 gassers last week, which ain't a ton, but 3 gassers is pretty good. And, so now the question is going to be, can I get them in shape quick enough in the next 3 weeks?
Yeah. Well, of course, the good thing is like you're talking about, you don't have to spend as much time teaching, and you've been in your 3rd year. A lot of these kids already know what to expect. Okay, just talk about, yeah, definitely. They've been in the program. They see it, and they're watching the guys in front of them, which is very important. Okay, talk about the upcoming season, the schedule, and who do you see in your region, 1A Region 7, as being the favorites?
Well, I made the comment at the deal we had there at Rainsville, the media days, that, there's going to be a couple of really good 1A teams that don't make the playoffs. I think, of course, Coosa is going to be right up there at the top, year in, year out. Decatur Heritage, Appalachian they fought us tooth and nail last year. Gainesville, Cedar Bluff's always going to be Cedar Bluff. You just get lucky to squeak by them. I was really impressed with Woodville at the weight meet. I think it's going to be anybody's game. I really do. Kind of like last year. Last year was the same way. We were close to losing at Appalachian. We were close to losing at Coosa. The Cedar Bluff game was close there for a while. Gainesville moves the football on you well. It stayed close for a little while, and they had those 2 big backs, and we couldn't stop them. And, it's just, heck, I think Gainesville may have had 4 or 5 fumbles. If that kid don't fumble away football, and that's not being negative to the kid, but that game's we can't stop them. And then our non-region games go, it's North Sand Mountain section, Otter, and then Collinsville. So they're basically all larger schools.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of improvement. I was impressed in the media days. Coach Poole was taking over at Woodville. They're going to be a lot improved. Sure. You've already seen it in the weight room.
We could have stopped
Coach Poole. Yeah, when Coach Poole, and then out at section, Coach out there taking over. They're going to be a different football team. Adder is going to be extremely better. They've got 9 seniors, so the schedule is going to be much tougher for you this year than it was last year.
From top to bottom, it'll be much tougher. Yeah, I really feel that. Last year was tough. Like I say, we were behind the halftime first 4 games, and so it wasn't because we was dropping the football. It was because there's 2 decent football teams going at each other. It wasn't very lopsided, I can tell you that.
Well, I can tell you this, these kids can't sit down and take a look at that schedule and say, we're going to win this and we're going to win this, and because there's no given one this year.
There's not one.
There has been in the past, but there's not this year because the teams you play have very much improved. And you're going to see a better North Sand Mountain football team because I think y'all kind of derailed their whole season last year. They never got over that loss. So they're out for blood. They're going to be ready for week 1.
Sure. I know Coach Kirby will have them ready. And, it's just going to be a gauntlet. We'll start here in 3 weeks and take them 1 week at a time, see if we can achieve, our winning season and achieve getting into the playoffs regardless of what seed. And then we'll go and set some goals for playoffs.
Well, Coach, I kind of want to get off subject here just a little bit, but I want to ask you about something. This happened this year where Crossville's not going to field a football team. They're going to field a JV team and hope to get interest back up. Are you afraid this is going to start being a trend in high school football in Alabama? I noticed today there was a school, Trinity, that canceled their football season because they had injuries and not enough interest in the football program. Do you see this as possibly being a trend? I hope not, but I'm afraid.
Well, you're always afraid of it. You're always afraid of, with all the through the years, the helmet has got lighter. The helmets that you wore, and even I wore, felt like a 12-inch block. And, I thought it protected us a little better. The light helmets and all the concussions and all the doctors and everybody's got involved is kind of really limiting your contact, limiting what you can do at practice. In schools like that, I think a big situation is they've had so many people move out of their school. We didn't win for 2 or 3 years. I'm taking my kid here instead of just sitting there and trying to make it better. I don't know exactly how to answer that, Phil. I hope not, but I'm not seeing it yet. The only thing I'm seeing is we're getting way more moving around than high school football's ever had. And I guess you watch TV, whatnot. I don't know. I don't know what causes it, but anyway, I don't think I don't see that happening. But if something happened at Valley Head and we went 6 straight years of losing seasons, and the field was up over your knee and the weeds was growing up behind the press box and nobody was really working at it to keep it, to keep everybody involved, and you lose 6 or 7 kids a year for 3 years, well, it can happen at Valley Head. But, and like Crossville situation is completely different with the size school they are. And, of course, we both know that. And I don't know about the Trinity place, but, Crossville really, has got 2 and 3A football numbers having to play, 6A?
Yeah, 5A. Yeah, 5A. Yeah, they're 6A. They were 6A. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the answer to it. When you've got, and Riley, Coach Edwards will tell you, he worked his tail off, and I'm sure this new coach will be too. But when you've got 1 and 2A numbers playing football, and you're at a 6A school, it's just not. It's just not going to pan out. It's hard. It's hard on everybody. I think, and don't let me. But I'm hearing Albertville's numbers are down.
They're way down.
Yeah.
They got 9 juniors and 9 seniors on a 7A football team. Their coach talked about they fed the band. Their band has 400 members.
400. Yeah, you've got 9.
Yeah. So
9 seniors and juniors combined, right?
Yes, 9 seniors and 9 juniors is on that football team. So, Crossville was 5A because they're in the region with Arab and Boaz and all of them, Sardis. So they were 5A. So, Randy's there. Go ahead.
I just said when you run out 24, 28 players and you're playing 5A ball, it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, because cause like last year, first game of the year when Crossville played Outer, they lost their best player and a chance to win that Outer game, and they just never recovered from that. They couldn't afford to have those injuries, and it happened to them. Randy, is there anything you want to ask?
Well, I just wanted to correct Coach that leather helmet Phil wore didn't weigh that much.
Yeah, believe me. I remember because he had set it down and then throw me in the showers. I remember all about
it.
Coach, you talked.
That's been a long time ago.
I hated to see those guys come. I mean, as much as I wanted to win, and in the 4th grade, as trying to be the top manager of all managers, when we won, they just give me the eye on the bus. Like, don't you leave? They threw me in the showers every game. It didn't matter how cold it was. I went home soaking wet after every game. It wasn't just me. It was all their managers. Me and Heath and Jason and Carl.
Yeah, usually I don't think I was too much in on that, but with the bunch that we had, you could expect anything. I mean, it was a wild bunch. That team had a character of its own, and Coach Kirby just pretty much just let us be. He knew that when the lights came on, it got serious, but off the field, I don't think there's a player on that team that had a serious bone in their body.
That's right. It was a fun group, even with me being that young. I told my wife here the other day, I don't know how to count very well, and I'm not very good at math, but I started getting on a football bus in the 4th grade, and I will be 50 in October, and I've not missed a football bus since 4th grade.
That's awesome.
That's a long time.
That is.
Yeah, that is. Well, Coach, I want to ask you, I don't usually ask this, but it's something I just kind of sort of thought of. If you could pick one player on your team that you'd go to war with, who would that be?
Oh, Lord. Hell, I'd like to think I've got about 29 of them or 30. I mean, I can't answer that with one player. Every kid that I've got right now brings something special to the table. They really do. I mean, I don't think I've got a kid that would lie to me. I think I've got kids that tell me the truth no matter how much trouble they're going to get in. I got kids, I think, that care what I think about them. And that feeling's mutual. You know, I don't have one, Phil. I just don't. You know, I've got some backups right now trying to find their way to a starting position, and they mean as much to this football team right now as the kids that have started for 3 years. You know, I've got some really good players. I ain't just calling them backup, but you know, Brody Battles, Lucas Elkins, Luther Wright. You know, I could go on and on with some kids that would start at Valley Head every year, and they're just right at the verge of starting. And I'm doing everything I can do, and they are too, to find a spot on this team for them for this year. And when they do, they're going to be just as important as the meanest kid on there that whooped everybody's daddy in town.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of answer I was expecting. I just kind of wanted to put you on the spot to see what kind of answer I would get. Yes, because, you know, and I know this to be a fact. You're only as good as the weakest link on your football team, because everybody counts, even if it's a role player in practice. Somebody contributes on every down of every practice and every game.
Every day. That's players, coach. You can put that to the coaching staff. You can put that to the players. You can put it to the manager staff, to the water girls. Yeah, we're only as good as our worst one.
Yeah. Well, Randy, is there anything you want to add before we let him go?
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you, you were talking about a little bit about your depth there. How does having that depth at 1A help you in practice? Is it, and it gives your kids a more, I'm thinking it gives your kids a better game day look.
Well, that's always been a problem at the 1A level anywhere, is having enough bodies to practice. And last year, we played a lot of kids one way. We had those two running backs, the quarterback and running back, that were very, very, very limited on defense, and they were two of the best athletes on the field on both teams. We were able to cut practice to an hour and a half. We were able to take the last 20 minutes and go one offense versus one defense every day live, and that made tons better. And right now, you know, we've lost a few kids, unfortunately, that would have contributed to staying one way. But right now, I think we've got probably 3.5 kids penciled in to play both ways, and I'm trying to get that down. You know, with Lucas and Brody and Luther and Braden Hughes and those guys. You know, if they can find in there and steal a spot and contribute, then that number will even come down. But right now, starting out tomorrow, you know, we're going to have to do offense and defense in the same day. But, you know, my theory is you take a guard that can't bend over and touch his knees, and he plays guard every day for 3 weeks, he becomes a pretty good guard.
Yeah.
If you just give him guard all day, every day. That's all you've got to learn to contribute. And that's where we like to get to. Even at a Valley Head, that's where we want to be.
Absolutely. Coach, last question for me, Phil, and I'll go back and let you close. I cover ball in Tennessee, been in Alabama, been in Georgia a little bit. And I think you're in a division where you have some private schools. And I think the way Alabama handles that is really better than maybe the state of Tennessee does. Do you like the way your district's set up between public and private? And does that bring anything more to the kids, maybe getting to play some people they normally wouldn't get to play?
You know, I don't know what the answer to it is. I'm not real sure that anybody knows what the answer to it is. The whole time I was in Georgia, it flip-flop, went up and down. And then when they done it, it still didn't help. I can speak. Of course, I've been here now. This is just 2 years, but I can speak. Say like at Chattooga, when the only people we could pull from was Chattooga County. That was it. What was in our district was eligible to play. And when we try, and I love Coach Atha. Coach Atha is one of my dear friends and done one of the best jobs coaching at Darlington High School that anybody could ever done. And he's retired, and I wish him the best. I think he's helping Coach Honeycutt at Model now. But he was at Darlington. And every year we would go play Darlington, whether I was at Chattooga or Dade. Every year. There was a 6'6" punter from Philadelphia. And I'm just using that for reference.
Yeah.
There wasn't many people in the stands. There was a $20 million facility. I don't know how many $1 million the facility is. When we come out of the locker rooms, there was janitors waiting on us to leave to clean the locker rooms. With a place like Chattooga, Dade County, I'm the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
I got to coach ball right on the front of the bus and be the janitor. And a lot of the kids, they would have at least 2 linemen that were big time SEC caliber kids. And to me, taking our pool and going over there and having to compete for a chance to go to the playoffs, it just wasn't very realistic. Some years we could play with them. We were pretty good. But year in, year out, it's, from a public standpoint, it just wasn't very realistic. When you can go across the country and give a kid a free ride to come stay in a dormitory at your school, and now you're going to play the school down the road that don't have a red light, I mean, it's not. Yeah, I don't know what the answer to it is.
Yeah, and then in Tennessee, they've made it where it's just its own thing, and I don't know if that's right. That you now have the private schools in the Chattanooga area playing like that prep ball schools out of Florida and California, and you don't play them Baylors and McCauley's no more.
No,
because the pool's so indifferent. I don't know if that's right either.
No, I don't know that either one. Again, whoever comes up with that answer that makes it work is a genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just there's not. I don't know if there is a right answer to it. I really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could put Darlington at the highest level, and they still are going to compete because they can get more kids because they can bring them in. But that's what I think you lose in high school football. Georgia's combined a lot of schools, and I don't want that to happen in Alabama. Is the community-based football programs.
Yeah.
When Ider plays, they're going to bring a bunch down here to Valley Head. Even if they're 2-8, they're still going to bring a house football. Yeah. It's a community thing.
Yes. That's kind of lost across the Georgia side of the state line. On a different note, I'll tell you something else that I'm seeing that you guys may see, or we all may see in the next 10 years. The big thing now is not private schools. The big thing now is charter schools.
Yeah.
Yes.
A charter system I hope I'm not speaking wrong here, but from what I understood, was a federally funded system. And they're getting some kids. For instance, we played Hapeville Charter in the quarters. The coach was the nicest guy in the world. It was a great ball game. My quarterback broke his leg or his ankle. We barely lost to go to semis. But long story short, he said, "Coach, you're from Alabama, ain't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." Their biggest defensive lineman, he said, "Coach, we just got him last week. He's from Foley or somewhere in Alabama." He said, "You know where it's at?" And I'm thinking, and I said, "How'd you get him?" He said, "Well, he's court ordered to come to a charter system, and we've got him here now."
Yeah.
I said, and of course, in Chattooga, they've started a charter school in Chattooga that's been going for about 3 years now. A lot of my friends work at it, and they don't have athletics. It's basically just for academics. But if they wanted to start athletics, if anybody went in with the drive to say, "Hey, I want to start a football team," well, they've got the school sitting there. It's Ombudsman is the name of it.
Hey, Coach,
I can see those popping up before long.
Yeah. Well, I saw one being built in South Alabama the last time I went on vacation. There was one being built. It's right on the interstate. Yeah. So we're going to see more and more and more of them.
We run into that in Tennessee that we play in a region and a district where, we can go so far, and we're going to run into Alcoa every year, which is which is a school that's allowed to take anyone from Knox County as long as they pay $150 enrollment fee.
Sure.
So they showed up. We met them in the semifinals a couple of years ago. They showed up with 7 charter buses. And we're at Dunlap in Sequatchie County. That's hard to compete with.
It's almost. I mean, you're behind the 8 ball. That's for sure.
That is.
Yeah, good. And it's not fair. And really, it's not really fair for the kids. Because my dream for all kids, it would be so nice to see every one of them get to play for a state championship. It's not going to happen, but you want it to be a level playing field where they have an opportunity.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, Coach, it's been a pleasure. It's been great having you on. I know we've learned a lot about your program, and of course, I'm sure you want to give a shout out to your fans and your people to get involved with the program. We don't have enough parents and community members that get involved with our programs. Tomorrow night there's a quarterback club meeting, and you're asking parents to show up, but we need parents to get involved, not just pay the admission to get into the football game. That don't help a whole lot. It does. It's great to support the kids, but you need support outside of the football program, to make it special to be a Valley Head Tiger and wear that football hat.
That's 100% correct. Everything you said is dead on. And, our community has always been really, really good to support us and support the team and that type. But you always need as much help as you can get. There's a lot of weeds to grow and a lot of stuff to be sprayed and a lot of fundraisers. And, this stuff ain't cheap anymore. I'd be scared to tell you how much we spent in 2 years just on equipment, cloth, down markers, mowers. Bought a used mower for $15,000. Where do you get $15,000 at? We couldn't afford a new one, and our clubs helped, and we pitched in and got the mower, and the field looks better now, but it's just extremely expensive to do anything. Of course, that's in anybody's life today, but football program is really expensive to run.
Yeah, because if you're going to keep a level of excellence, you have to update everything around you. I know the stadium got built; things kind of sort of went downhill just a little bit, but now you're starting to get those things built back up, and that's important. I know you're wanting to get a new weight room built because you've outgrown the old one. So some things are happening at Valley Head, and it's going to take community support to make it happen.
Oh, it does. It does. You can't do it by yourself. I used to love 20 years ago. We started to build that new field house, and I went out there with a shovel. I just lined it off, kind of see what it looked like, and I had a shovel. There was 2 or 3 community guys stopped by and said, "Coach, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, we need a new field house. We've outgrown this one. We need that. This is kind of my plan." I'm telling you, it wasn't. In those 4 years, Phil, I added it up. Now, this is 20 years ago, and we've done the same now. We're about to reach that point. If we can get the weight room built, we will be there. But, we spent close to $400,000 community raised.
Yeah.
There was some, the county helped and senators and legislative people helped, but we had to go to them, for something. So, it's important that every community gets involved with their sports program, not just football, but basketball, baseball, wrestling, whatever it may be, and just get involved. You don't realize how just somebody showing up and making ice cream at the end of practice, or somebody showing up and giving out popsicles. Our kids need to see folks doing that and to thank them and stand around with them and talk to them like adults talk.
Yeah, it's easy to support. It's easy to support the kids when they're winning, but you also want to support them when things aren't going very well, because you're not going to win every football game.
No, sir. No, sir.
Randy, you want to close things out?
Coach, you're welcome back anytime. You want to come, bring some kids with you anytime you want to talk to us. Please come back and talk to us.
We sure will, and thank y'all so much for having me on.
And we appreciate it, Coach. And again, first of all, the first thing you do is go down to that and it's a beautiful 1A field every Friday night and support this team that they're in on.
Thank you.
Coach, appreciate it. We will catch you again. Thank you very much.
Okay, y'all have a good, safe evening.
You too, Coach.
Thanks, Charles Robert.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Phil, just a good guy. Real down to earth. One of my favorite out at media days. Truly one of my favorite coaches just to sit and talk to. He's a good guy.
Yeah, definitely. So kids love him. The community's supporting him, and it's good to have him back at Valley Head because he's true blue Valley Head, and he'll probably be there until he decides to retire. So, how long that will be, we don't know. Of course, as long as he's motivated to coach football and the kids show up and play for him, I'm sure he's going to keep on.
You know, Phil, one of the things I'm horrible at, anybody that's watched this or watches it going on in the future, please like and share and join us here at River City Media. You'll get the best of DeKalb County and Jackson County, and you'll also get a little Sequatchie Valley mixed in, a little North Georgia, a little Chattanooga. Phil, I think we're aiming to really bring this tri-state together so that we're one information source for a lot of football in the area.
Yeah, right now, of course, we've had a few football coaches on. It's tough because they're fixing to really get busy, so it's going to be hard to get them. But we'll have other resources and other people on. Of course, we between you and I both, we'll find somebody, and we'll have several people on because over being in media for a while, you get to know a lot of people who know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Absolutely.
So, so it's great to have people on, tell their story, talk about their kids, because it means a lot to them. I know Charles Roberts come a long way to get to where he's at. It's always good to hear his story because the important thing, especially for a football coach, is leave a legacy. And your legacy is not how many games you win or lose always. It's how you prepare the kids for life.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing.
So, Phil, one of the big things for next week to get to next week, and the thing that we will probably focus on here, Friday night, you're going to be up for your first ever Sequatchie Valley Jamboree, and we're going to have we're going to be walking around with one of these phones, and we'll probably get some interviews with some coaches and come back and play them next week and talk about some of the things we've seen. And we got some big time teams over there. We've got, of course, from the area, we've got Whitwell coming. We have got Sequatchie County coming. We've got Bledsoe County coming. But we've also got some, what I call premier teams from outside the area. Bledsoe County coming too. And got 5A Ray County coming. And we've got Howard coming. So it's some schools we don't get to see always coming down this week on Friday night.
No, because, it's neat to have Howard coming. They've built the football stadium and track right on the interstate coming into Chattanooga, and it's a beautiful facility. That's kind of sort of right in that part of town has kind of been an eyesore, and they're starting to beautify that part of the area.
Yeah.
And that football field adds a lot to that area. Of course, that Howard School, you've seen it for years, kind of off the interstate there, but they're trying to make things look better down in that neck of the woods. And that gives, areas like that, like Howard, a little bit of a sense of pride when things around them are starting to look better instead of, become dilapidated. And that field's a start, I think, for them. But, they've traditionally have always had a good football team. I remember when I grew up in Chattanooga, they were always putting Ooltewah out of the playoffs. And, because back when only one team went, Howard would beat them every time. Ooltewah would have a great football team, but they couldn't beat Howard. So traditionally, Howard has had a great football program. Of course, how good they always are in basketball. That's been one of their premier sports. But it'd be good to see them. Of course, Ray County in football traditionally always very strong. The thing is about Ray County, it's amazing what kind of following they have.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was at school at Red Bank, they had to reserve seats on the home side because so many Ray County people was coming.
In a school coming off a 2-8 year, Phil, but it's also kind of a strange situation. A 2-8 year, but they were in games with teams that advanced deep into the playoffs. Kind of rubber meets the road with Ray County this year. And last year we probably saw this coming when we saw Ray County and Bledsoe County play on the field, and Bledsoe was kind of able to manhandle Ray County. So we'll see a replay of that, and we'll see if Ray County can now step up and change their game, because 5A Ray County ought to be able to manhandle 2A Bledsoe easy in a scrimmage, especially one-on-ones, just the size of the school and the talent pool.
Of course, in a jamboree, you're going to see a lot of vanilla stuff.
Yeah.
They're not going to run a whole lot of things. They're going to keep in a base defense. They're going to keep in a base offense. And you're not going to see a whole lot anyway. It's mainly trying to get your kids lined up, try to get them to be in the right places. It's a little bit, it's the dress rehearsal, but it's to make sure your kids know where they're going and what they're doing.
Yes, sir, Phil. And, of course, we don't want to pass by. Now, we'll be at the alternative, which is the Sequatchie Valley. But now, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Finley Stadium, the schools that choose to play in that, and I find it interesting that some schools, say 75% of the schools in the area choose to play in that. But there's some schools, as you say, playing over in Dunlap, that just wants to get away and kind of get their, they don't want to be on that big stage for the Jamboree. And I think that's what we'll be at on Friday night, is kind of an alternative site for teams that maybe don't want to play in that. But if you've not been to Finley, you can see 10, 12 teams in one day down there in their Jamboree, in the Finley Jamboree.
Yeah, they're from all over. I know Bradley's going to be there. And of course, Baylor and McCauley. I think McCauley will be there. Red Bank will be there. So a lot of your big name Signal Mountain, a lot of your big name schools in Chattanooga area will be there. It's just a dress rehearsal, but it's a good thing. Of course, I remember back when they used to have the jamborees when I lived in Chattanooga, was over at Brainerd, and it was so fun to go watch those jamborees, to see those teams. And they wouldn't play but a quarter, but it was so neat to get to see everybody, the pageantry, the bands would play. And it's so much fun to go see those jamborees when you get to see everybody at once. Otherwise, you get to see one game. If you're out and watching football, you only get to see one game at a time. And sometimes you follow one team, so that's the only game a lot of times you go to. So it's fun to see the pageantry of all these schools that come and the traditions. That's good at the college level. It's also good at the high school level. But, the deal at Finley Stadium is good because it kind of sort of gets things started and gets people excited about high school football.
And Phil, coming here in a few minutes, we're going to have the second half of the interview with Coach Aaron Medley from the University of Tennessee, former place kicker, and he'll finish out the show. We'll let that play out. Of course, I already had let the interview play in its entirety. We've had great response to it. But I'm going to throw something at you I did prepare you for a couple of minutes, Phil, and I just want to get some gut thoughts from you, and maybe a couple of questions here. Recruiting in college football has greatly changed. No longer are we waiting for a February signing day. You're seeing now more and more kids get it over before September. Tennessee's class is 19 deep right now. Alabama's 14. Auburn having a monster year. Georgia, monster year. Everybody recruiting fine. But what I want to ask you about, I find it strange. Those state lines have kind of broke down in recruiting, and you saw Alabama come to Chattanooga and get Amari Jefferson out of Chattanooga, the number one wide receiver in the state of Tennessee. At the same time, you see Tennessee leading for Jordan Ross, a 5-star defensive end out of the Vestavia Hills area. College football, Phil, really, high school football, we both spend so much time with it. State lines are kind of breaking down, and it's becoming more regional programs. You see more schools recruiting in other schools' backyard. And even with Alabama's success, you see people recruiting in their backyard. It's a different model.
I think NIL has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely.
Players, because especially schools in Texas, Oklahoma, they've got all that old money and stuff like that. NIL has a lot to do with it, where these kids go now because they get better deals. People don't really pay attention to that. Used to be you went to the school you felt best about.
Yes,
That's what school gives you the best opportunity in the NIL deal. But now also, I think this is the case with the kid from Baylor. You also want to look how quick you're going to get on the field.
Yes, sir.
Probably more likely if he goes to Knoxville, and this is not anything against Alabama, he's going to be able to get on the field faster at Alabama than he will Knoxville, because Tennessee is getting those receivers now, and they've got a lot of young receivers. They have a lot of depth, and the opportunity for him to get to play quicker is probably going to be at Alabama. Now, you're talking about the kid from Vestavia Hills, the 5-star defensive lineman.
Jordan Ross.
He's probably going to have a better opportunity to get on the field if he goes to Tennessee. This is just an example. This is just my theory. But I think a lot of kids look at that now because, you look, Alabama has great recruiting years every year, but look how many jump ship after a year or two. When they see that they're not going to get on the field quick, they look for somewhere to go play. So, yeah, these schools have great recruiting years, but players just bounce around like crazy. You have to recruit well.
Yeah. Well, Taven Jackson was at Tennessee. He was a 4-star quarterback at Tennessee. Saw Nico Imala, I can't say his name. Saw Nico come in as a 5-star, instantly elevate up to second team in the very early practices. Leaves, and he's the starter at Indiana now, where he grew up. And Phil, that's more and more happens with the transfer portal. If you're and he has nothing but good things to say about Tennessee and Coach Heupel, but he knew he was blocked. Joe Milton in front of him, Nico in front of him, another 4-star in the next class coming, and he made the decision to hit the portal to play. And that playing time, Phil, is becoming more and more critical as you talk about.
Yeah, and players don't leave these schools because they're disgruntled. They're just looking for a better opportunity. Because every one of them will tell you, this coach did great for me. I appreciate it when I was there, but I'm going for a better opportunity. Yep. And coaches understand that. That's going to happen. It's just the way college football is now. Kids are not going to wait around. They're not going to be loyal. You're not loyal to them, and they're not going to be loyal to you because it's all about money now. And I think that's what's kind of ruined football. It's about money now, and there's no real loyalty anymore. You're just wearing a brand anymore. You're not representing the school you go to. You're wearing a brand.
Absolutely,
and that's the way it's marketed. Also,
well, Phil, it was a great show having Charles Roberts on, Coach Hammom on, and that's special. I can tell you, Valley Head's a special place because once Coach hit the airwaves, we never dropped across our media below 22 people watching live. And that's a huge number. You think that's a small community. And I appreciate the support down there. And Coach is a real good guy. I like Coach Hammom.
Yeah, I've known him for a long time. Watched him kind of grow up. He was quite a bit younger than me, but I've watched him, and he's done well for himself. So, I'm glad for him because he's worked hard for it. He been nothing given to him. He's worked hard for everything he's got, and he continues to work hard. And he's a good mentor for those kids.
Yeah. And Phil, we're going to let you go here in a minute, and I'm going to get off from here, and we're going to let play out the second part of this interview with Coach Aaron Medley. We've already played the whole thing one time. And almost 2,000 people. It's nice that we're getting. It's nice. There's a good comment from our friend Brian Smith. Most players want to play, not sit the bench, and I think that's the key, Brian. In college today, they're not going to sit the bench like they did in our day.
So, no, just because they wear that color, they want on the field.
Yeah. Well, and of course, we want to thank Brian, who's through his connections with his son Isaac, who's a high-level, all-state type kicker and a regional soccer player, and being recruited himself for setting up this interview with Coach Medley. I can't say his name right. I said that last week. But Phil, the success of it, we were able to get the message out to 2,200 people that if you have a son that wants to kick, and you got somebody that's able to put a little power in the ball, here's an opportunity to get some training from him and James Wilhoyd, two players that's been there and done it at the SEC level. At the professional level, they've trained kickers. This is the opportunity to get some training. If that's the way your son chooses to follow, I guess I say son or daughter because they had a girl at Vandy, but we'll say son right now, Phil. That's a unique opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think they've built a good brand. They both have, they're well-known names, and they've built a good brand, and that's the key. A lot of people will start kind of camps like that, but you have to build a brand, and they have done that. And, and the biggest thing is what helps is where they have information and opportunities for kids to go play right there at their camp. They don't just bring them in and show them how to kick a football. They show them the opportunities that they can give them to reach those goals. So they do their homework on the backside, which creates a great environment, and it makes kids come there because the opportunities are there, and they can show it to them right on paper.
Absolutely, and it's the coach said it the other day. Kids are getting educations, and that's huge. So I'm going to let this play out, and that'll close us out for the night, Phil. Another great show. We'll see you next Monday with a lot more high school football. And I'm getting where I look forward to these Mondays, Phil.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun again. Of course, I look forward to Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. So for Phil and Randall, follow River City Media, and here's the second part of this interview from Coach Aaron Medley.
Pretty good. So might as well pursue it, right? So that's that, and sometimes you just never know. And I've got other kids that, day one, it's like, man, you got a lot of work to do. And then by, year two, they're like, oh, they're actually pretty good. They picked it up.
Right.
And so that's always fun to see. But yeah, I think if you're somebody who's thinking about doing it, and, there's never really a wrong time to try out. But ideally it's 8th or 9th grade. And then just, continue to get in the weight room. And that's another thing that's changed a lot over probably the last 6-7 years is athletes are starting to become kickers, right? I think the mantra has always been, well, kickers are just kind of these squirrely, itty bitty guys who can just kick a ball a long way and they don't really do much. Well, that's changing. There's a lot of guys that I'm looking at. I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not in your class because you would run circles around me.
But even if I remember correctly, your leg was strong enough to get several offers even from the Big 12. So it was kind of a self-taught art for you at the time. Do you think you being self-taught helps you instruct now that you have a little more technique and strategy and kind of just the proper form in your career or in your training bag?
Yeah, I think that's, having done it, the way I teach guys is I teach them the way that I think, but I tell them, this is how I think about it, and this is how I go about it. Your way might be different, but what I want them to understand is the concept. So as long as they understand the concept, right, because I'm not going to be there every day at practice. I can't be in 1,000 places at once.
Right.
So if they understand the concept, in my mind, they should be able to kind of self-coach. And then once you get good enough, you almost want to, and this is kind of where I was, probably made a mistake, because I tried to self-coach too much. It's where I was kind of getting in my own head sometimes. And so that's kind of where you find your guy and you say, just kind of pull back and you just go do. But yeah, the mental game, the mental aspects, even in practice and games, that was something that I always took a lot of analyzing to try to develop, a perfect system. And I feel like I got there. I feel like the 2018 when I was coming out for the draft, I think I probably went, month and a half, and my kicking sessions were I just didn't miss, and it almost got really boring. And that's kind of where you want it to be, where when you get set, that ball's just already going in because you've done your homework, you've done your pre-check alignment, and you just know. So I tell guys all the time, if you can get to that point, that's when you know. But that takes a lot of reps, takes a lot of repetitions, and you have to be very purposeful every day when you're going out to kick.
As one of the guys that sits in the stands that thinks every kick looks easy, a 40-yarder is a long ways even. And you think about Chase making the 40-yarder to beat Alabama. When I got onto the field and I looked at 40 yards, anybody that's getting over 35 or 40 yards has got a strong leg. Is that when they come to you? Do you already measure their range or have how strong your leg is documented?
I think there's a fine line between, exploding your hip and your leg through a ball and then trying to overkick. And I hate to use golf because I think that's like probably the closest analogy, but, you want to be on balance. You want to be, powerful. So, you swing as hard as you can stay on balance. If you swing too hard and you're off balance, it's like, well, that's too hard. You need to back it off a bit and, kind of build your way up. But yeah, I think the progression, most guys, when they start out, if they can strike a ball, usually 20, 25 yards, 30, by like 8th grade. Mm-hmm. Now, when you start getting into we've had some juniors hit 60. We've had some seniors hit 65, 70. So when that weight room and, kind of maturity starts to come along, that's when it can get really, really fun. But as far as if you're starting out, distance isn't a crucial thing. I think the biggest thing is just going to be learn how to strike a ball, learn how to leg lock, and then coming up through the ball, and get the fundamentals down before you really start trying to attack it.
So my friend's son, Isaac Smith, that's working with you as a former soccer player or a current soccer player at a very high level, is there habits that you have to break soccer players from when they enter the football realm?
Oh, God, yes, all the time. And I think from a coaching perspective, and and I get it. You find these dual sport athletes where they're playing, football in the fall, and then soccer season comes, and they're doing the school soccer and then the travel soccer. It just kind of becomes this, which wolf do you want to feed? Do you want to feed the football guy or the soccer? So that's where guys can kind of stunt their growth in the kicking element a little bit, but I get it. It's your time to be a kid. It's time to have fun. And I think just it's whatever you want to get out of it, right? Because whatever you put in, is what you're going to get out. So I don't blame them at all. But the ones that do succeed, we start seeing them around sophomore, junior year start to just migrate to the football side, and then start adding a little bit more weight room to their regimen, and then that's when they explode, and it's really good to see.
So I know it's you made the golf analogy. I was going to say the same thing. Punters and kickers are, to me, the punter is the guy that can hit off the tee 300 yards, but the place kicker is the guy 150 in that can put his wedge wherever he needs it.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a difference in, I guess, good kickers don't always make good punters, and good punters don't always make kickers? Is that technique, or is that just what you've done repeatedly thousands of times?
So I would use the analogy of dancing, right? For punting, it's a lot like dancing. Some guys have it, and they got good moves, and they can just pick it up and go. And some guys look like they have two left feet, and they have to really work at it to develop the rhythm. I was kind of a guy that could dance a little bit. Not actual dance, but I could punt. I would kind of come across the ball a little bit, but I really had to train myself to walk straight, because the rotation of your hips when you're kicking is very different from the explosion up when you're punting. So kind of having two different swings.
Right.
If there's any golfers out there, it's kind of like hitting a fade and then trying to hit a draw back to back. Just two different swings, and if you can get it down, that's great. But I think that's why you don't see a lot of, especially in the NFL, a lot of kickers and punters doing both. So that's it. But yeah, I would say that it is more difficult to learn how to punt than it is to learn how to kick.
Interesting. I would have thought it would have been the other way around. But in our last few minutes, let's talk a little about your instructions. I know you move around, and you're at different places. And if a parent is listening to this interview and wants to get involved, and say they're in the Chattanooga area or the Knoxville area, explain how this works, or how you're in different areas to train.
Yeah, so we've actually got a really good system, and this has kind of been, like I said, over the course of 13 years, it's been kind of redeveloped. But basically, your timeline goes new client camp. So those are held usually in February, March, and April. And then we've got another one coming up in October, I believe. And we've got a link online. It's jameswoolhoitkicking.com. And if you don't know how to spell Woolhoit, it's Wilhoit. So those are kind of your opportunities to get involved. We've also got summer camps, so those are open to new clients as well. But once you're a new client, the way that we like to see progression is we've got spring training programs. So those will be four times in the spring, so about once a month. And then we'd like to see you at a summer camp. And then your fall training is very light. So you're probably about once a month. We're not trying to kill your legs because you're in season, but we do want to keep you on the tracks, so to speak. And then probably about and that's if you're like a freshman or, 8th grader, even a sophomore. If you're a junior, it might be a little accelerated. So, you might come in as like a summer camp and then just go straight into some of the spring trainings. But I would say if you're a junior, go to a new client camp, and then you need to go to a Kohl's showcase. So that way you can get a ranking, kind of know like where you stand in recruiting, who else is above you, kind of give you an idea of what schools to be looking for. So, and we help with all that. So like that's kind of a full service.
Right.
And that's one thing that I'm really proud of that we're able to kind of do now. Now that we've built kind of some of these recruiting connections with different schools across Tennessee, and then so a little bit in Kentucky, is adding. Go to a coach like, who do you need? Are you needing a punter for next year, or are you needing a kicker this year, or like who are you redshirting? So knowing that information can be valuable to say to a group of guys like, hey, like this spot's open, go fight for it, right? And so that's so that we've seen a lot of success there this year. Doing that, so it's a good opportunity, but it only works if the client's willing to work. What we teach is tried and true, but we see a few guys that don't really put in the effort sometimes, and they're always middle of the road.
Right.
So yeah, but it's good, it's rewarding for sure. So if there's any parents out there that need to get or want to get involved, jameswoolhoitkicking.com. And you can sign up right there on the links. So it's pretty easy, to be honest.
I will put that link on the website too, in case anyone wants to come and come to our website. It'll link it to you. I did not know about the that is a very full service. So, do you think smaller schools, Division II, Division III schools, I'm thinking of like Columbia and Maryville and stuff, they've got to have kickers too, and getting there, I think that would be a harder path for a coach to find a kicker to come to Cumberland University or Maryville. Are you involved with those type of coaches too?
Oh yeah, so the school that comes to mind is Carson Newman,
right.
TSU. A lot of, and honestly, a lot of the smaller schools, like those are the people that we probably have the best connections with, just because it's so hard to recruit. Because a lot of times their recruiting budgets are very, very small. But if we can have, a short list of like 5 or 6 guys that say, hey, these guys would be a really good fit, it just helps them out that much more. And I don't think I think we do a really good job of not playing favorites. Like I said, it's a very unbiased representation. So, and I think that's what the coaches want. I think that's what the players want too. To know that we're giving them a fair shot, that it's their job to go out and earn it.
Absolutely. Last question, Coach, and we'll wrap up for the day. I wanted to ask you, we've talked about the physical and you've talked about the next level. What about the mental preparation of a kicker? How much time do you spend working with your students? Just you're on the sideline, you've got to make a kick, because to me it seems like a huge part of the kicking game.
It is, but I also think that's developed over a long period of time. I think we spend some time talking about it at every camp, but I think it's going to be different for everybody. For me, it was always I had somewhat of a checklist, right? back up 3 steps, make sure my line is good, take side steps, make sure my angles are good, set my feet, set my hips. Once I'm there, then my brain would, kind of go on autopilot almost from there. And I could just see a ball, hit a ball, because all my pre-work had already been done. So that was kind of what gave me the confidence to go be aggressive, and kind of make that same swing. Other people might be a little bit different. And I think I see a little bit of, everything, a full spectrum, so to speak, training 150 guys. So that's kind of where it's, as a coach, like I could see a little, almost like a therapist, right? I don't talk about anybody else, but I get to see it, kind of everything that's out there. And I would say, what I did worked for me, but it may not work for somebody else. But yes, the mental game is huge. I think that, I compare it to golf a lot. Golfers, it's how do I swing and not think about technique and just swing? But when I'm on the practice range, I'm trying to work technique, from dusk till dawn. So like, I think there's a fine line between trying to get inside your own head and just kind of letting your body just naturally do what it does. So that's kind of always the inner battle, the game within the game.
Absolutely. Coach, thank you for the time. I won't keep you any longer. I know you have a busy life. You get to coach, but I'm pretty sure you probably have to work too, since you were out of town last couple of days. And I appreciate your time. And, any time that you've got new client local to the Chattanooga area, please let us know. Come on, talk about it. We welcome you anytime. And thank you so much for taking time for us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. Everybody looking forward to the season this year. So we'll be, I think we're going to a few games. So hopefully Tennessee can pull out a few wins, beat Georgia, and let's go win the SEC.
You know what? I've already called it, Coach. I already called it. We beat Georgia in Knoxville. So I'm just going to end on that remark. So I appreciate it.
All right. Randall, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right. Bye.
A very, very special guest here on River City Media. And thank you for listening. And I want to thank Brian Smith, Isaac Smith, for setting that up for us. And we appreciate you listening in on us. And this is Beyond the Booth. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're here. Very special guest today with us. And as you're hearing this, I am so excited to have him. And I watched this young man kick for years, enjoyed his play. Coach Aaron Melody of the Tennessee Volunteers formerly. Welcome aboard.